What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols. I am Mike. With me is Josh and Steve. The Hounds got their first win of the season and 3 goals to boot. I guess it deserves a let's go! Is it just me, or was that really loud?
It sounded normal on my end.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's fine.
I was just jacked up. Hey, guys. How we doing?
Hey.
What's up?
Yeah, Josh, welcome back. It's been a minute.
Thanks.
Yeah. You want to probably itching. You want to crack open that victory beverage before we go any further? There it is. First one of the season.
First one.
Sound.
Yes, it's a good one. What are you drinking?
Icy light mango.
Oh,
Keeping it local.
Okay. Good for you. Good for you. Steve, what's new, my friend?
Not much. Glad the weather's getting nicer again after those cold days last week. Just trying to get outside as much as I can. House projects, garden projects, hiking. Yeah.
I got some
summer.
I got some garden stuff that I'll tell you about off air. Maybe we'll share it on air at some point. But I got this idea that's going to be kind of cool. Josh, what's new with you guys?
Keeping the theme. I mowed my backyard. Does that count as gardening?
Sure.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Landscaping.
I count it. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
We're outside.
Yeah. I held off as long as I could, and it was starting to look like a jungle back there. And I'm like, oh, fine, I'll do it. It was record store day on Saturday, so I went to record store, and unfortunately, my taste in music is terrible. So every single record I wanted was there. No one bought any of them, so I spent way too much money. I was like, oh, I have a list of like 7 records I want. I'll get like 3 of them probably. Oh, they're all available. All right.
What's your top of those that you got?
Daft Punk had a record that is like the soundtrack, like kind of like the instrumentals of like if you remember the music videos where it looked like there was like a space opera going on, like with like blue people and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that whole soundtrack. Sonic Youth, best of. Funnily enough, the record is from 2015, I think, when I want to say Starbucks actually asked them to do a best of, like a compilation, and they thought it was a lame idea. So
Starbucks.
Yeah, so it's literally like I think it's called something like only lame people do. I can't remember how it is, but basically it makes fun of the fact that it's a compilation. It's like a lame compilation.
And you've got it.
And I was like, that's funny. I want it.
Yep.
And it's actually a good compilation. So
that's great.
Yeah, some good ones, but also just like random like Ladytron, which is like an old electronic band that was big in England but never really made it here. Some other random stuff. Dead Milkmen.
Nice.
Yeah.
I saw Linkin Park, they dropped their Paper Cuts album this past week, and the vinyl is pressed in a way that when it spins, it animates.
Yeah.
So cool. Like the stuff changes. I was like, that's kind of neat. I need to get back into like going to record stores. I mentioned on a previous episode, I'm getting back into physical media a little bit more, but it's more on DVDs, and I'm like dragging the kids to the library with me to like actually like comb the shelves and like find stuff. And I found that I really enjoy that experience so much more than like scrolling on streaming services. So I think records will probably be the next foray. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Guys, it is a fun hobby. It's an expensive hobby, but it's a fun hobby for sure.
Our age. Oh wait, you've got kids. Never mind.
Yeah, well, this is very, very true. Yeah. Just a quick reminder for those of us who are joining us live, you guys can always leave comments. We'll pull some of the comments up later in the show, talk about them. Yeah, cheers to all of you out there, guys. The Hounds they pulled a stunner, I guess. Maybe we'll call it a stunner. We could debate whether or not it's a stunner. Rolling the champs 3-1 in Phoenix, which I think, going into this game, I would have been happy taking a draw. So to see that we got 3 goals was a big shocker to me, especially since we had 1 in the past 5. Goals from Sterling, Kizza, Dien. I think, the big The big thing for me is it seems like the past few games, really since the start of the season, Lily's been trying to figure out what this team is in terms of structure and shape and all of that. And the first few games were sort of marked by Danny Griffin at center back, moves Danny Griffin out of center back. We get a couple draws. In this case, he rolls out more of a 4-2-3-1. You really didn't have the wing backs bombing up. You sort of had the three guys at the top with Etu and Mertz sort of making the runs, but otherwise the guys who were out wide on defense pretty much stayed at home, and gave Danny Griffin and Sample a little bit more time to play around in the midfield. But it worked. I guess, Josh, give me a takeaway from this game.
The scoreline makes it seem like it was a lot more of an easy game than it really was. This was definitely not, like, especially that first half. Like, I did not feel confident in this game. I was like, oh man, we're going to eke out a draw at best, and that's going to be great. I'm happy with that. Second half, definitely different feeling there, but let's get the bad out of the way real fast.
Sure.
That PK.
Yeah.
The whole sequence, if for people who didn't watch it, so Sterling scores a goal, but the whistle had blown right before he kicked it because of a handball in the box. I mean, that's what they're saying.
But watching it on the replay a little bit ago, because that was one of the things I was watching. Like, it was, I feel like he blew
I
the
would have
whistle
called it. Yeah.
after the kick, but it was close.
It was close.
Like,
yeah. Regardless, what they judged it as if the goal didn't count because the ref was already calling the play back for a handball in the box against Phoenix. So we were getting a PK. Yeah. So at first you're like, oh, this really sucks, but we got a PK, hopefully it'll be fine. And then Sterling skies the PK and you're just like, we should be up 2-1 now. But we had a comedy of errors there with the disallowed goal and then a missed PK. It's like, two goals right there. Should have been.
Yeah.
The PK itself, in my opinion, was soft anyway. Like, the guy first, I think the goal should have stood, but basically Etu took a shot and there was a guy who was basically falling in front of the ball with his hands behind his back, and it hit one of the hands that was behind. Like, the guy wasn't trying to make a play with his hand, but then to your point, Sterling picks it up and scores. So it kind of like nullifies everything anyway. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of cases in this game where it's USL, so it's just get out your bingo board. The officiating wasn't good. There was another time that Phoenix scored because Dick went up and there was a guy that jumped near him and like hit his hand that I thought like that shouldn't have necessarily been a call either. But Steve, go ahead.
Was that so that's what I was going to bring up. Was that the ref feeling like he owed us something because he realized that's kind of how I felt about that, because there was nothing in that.
Yeah.
Like, he barely touched Eric and gets called for it and pulls the goal. Like, I feel like he's like, oh, I screwed up before and they didn't score, so I can't let Phoenix have this goal because right? Like that's what it felt like to me. Like, it was peak USL reffing of giving us a makeup call on a nothing foul.
Yeah, it should, none of that should have happened. It should have just been a goal and move on. Like, it's not even like the handball blocked the original, you know what I mean? Like, it felt like it was just ricocheting around the box, and then that's what happened. And to Monda's point in the chat, it wasn't like it was in a natural position because he was trying to catch himself from falling. So like, it is what it is. But yeah, regardless of how much the ref screwed it up, missing that PK is egregious. Like the stutter step to begin with, like the slow roll, it just felt very, very forced there. And I was like, this is, as soon as he started walking towards it, I'm like, I'm nervous. This is not going in.
I thought he might have got called for hesitating because you can't stop. And he clearly almost stopped. And I think that might have actually what froze him, was when he stopped, the keeper didn't move. And then he kind of and just chipped it. Hopefully he learns from it. And maybe he won't be taking PKs in the future. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, at that point in the game, I don't know if he's the answer to take a PK, but who else is stepping up at that point?
That was going to be my question. Who else takes the PK? Mertz?
I was going to say Mertz is the only one I can think of. Like he has precision enough to be the one who takes our corners. So like obviously that's one answer. Yeah, the fact that it could also be Kiza, obviously, or Etsu. But yeah, I think Sterling taking it made sense just because of also like it was his goal that was disallowed. So like let him have that back. And you expect him to put that away, at least on target. It'd be one thing if the keeper caught it or like deflected it, but the fact that he didn't even hit the framework or anything. So.
I mean, that's what you always coach, right? Like, at least make the keeper screw up. Like, just put it on target. And if the keeper catches it, great. But when you put it outside the net, then, like, the keeper doesn't have to do anything. It's all on you. So, yeah. Josh, you mentioned Etsu. I want to talk about Etsu for a second. There were moments in this game where I was like, is the game has the game caught up with them in a way that I think in the past we've discussed whether or not the game has caught up with Kenny a little bit. There were times that he, balls were sort of played in his direction and he either gave up on them or it seemed like he was down a step. But as the game progressed, I was like, hold on a second. Like, he was pretty much involved in most of the offensive action. I put like 2 air quotes assists. I think he only got credit for 1, but he was definitely involved in the buildup for the second one. And it was his shot that led to the PK for Sterling. So I think he quietly in that position has become, and you guys could probably disagree whether or not it's quietly or not, but he's got the offensive output. It's just a matter of do you guys, I don't know. Steve, tell me about Etsu. What were your thoughts on him in this game?
So, I mean, a few thoughts. I thought he, especially in the second half, had an excellent performance. I think a lot of that is because of where he was playing. I mean, if you look at his average position, it was beyond half field. If you look at his heat map, he's pretty far advanced pretty frequently. I mean, I think we saw this at times from him last year. Wasn't it him who slipped the ball to Danny in New England?
Might have been.
Right? Like, I mean, like that he has the ability to really find some absolutely sublime lines and get the ball where he wants it to be when he's doing well. I mean, I was thrilled with his performance to the point where I got to ask the question, do we start calling him Senior Etsu now?
That's terrible. I'm not going to justify an answer to that joke.
That's what I got for you.
I love the silence.
I don't even know how to transition out of that. So, Etsu, good game. All right, moving on.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say Kiza is another one that I kind of want. Well, there's a couple players I want to talk about. Kiza was one. The Hounds named him the man of the match. He got a goal in this one. He was involved in the play. He had the nice little heel flick to Sterling for that first goal. It seemed like a lot of the goals were really sort of good team buildup, which is something that we had been missing. But Josh, do you agree in terms of if you were picking a man of the match? Is Kiza your man of the match?
I understand it. Like, I don't know if I would have picked him as the man of the match, but he definitely had a good game. Like, as far as, watching Kiza play game after game, I think this was one of his best games he's had. I think there's a lot of players, though, that you can say that with. I mean, well, first off, Dick kept us in this game. Like, there was so many opportunities for us to go down, and he had some great saves. It also felt like we had a force field around our goal for some reason. Like some of those shots should have been goals, but
one ripped off the post. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like the other one, like it was a wide open net. And like, I think if I remember right, it just like went wide or something like that, or went into traffic. So there was just a lot of that. I thought Sample had a great game as well, actually. I was surprised to see just how much of a difference he was making. But I mean, to your point, like there was a lot of talk especially by me, about Sterling coming in. He was going to be, our Dequa, our like hopes and all of our goals, all that kind of stuff. Or I believe I think I said like I thought he was going to feed Kizza a lot of his goals. Like it was going to be a lot of like play between them two. We are getting some of that, but I definitely think I'm surprised by Kizza being more the shot taker than Sterling is.
Yeah. Mondo posted a question in chat. What do you guys think about the exclusion of Forbes from the starting 11? I think, you guys can obviously share your thoughts as well. I was a bit surprised, but when I saw that it was sort of Forbes for Sample, I think I was more excited. I think there were shades of Sample when he came in late in the past few games. He can pick a pass. And I think having someone like him and Danny Griffin sort of rotating in that holding position and feeding players like Mertz and Etu and Sterling and Kizza in front of him is interesting. And I think the only way that we're going to know what we have in Sample is if you give him more time. So, this is a case going west. You could have played Kenny, but I think it was interesting. I wouldn't call this a must-win game. As I mentioned, I was like hoping for a draw again, but you get enough draws this early in the season and you're still in a hole. So you kind of got to take your shot when you can. And to the Hounds' credit, we weren't sitting back and waiting for something to happen even after we were up. We kept going for it, which is good. So, I think I'm okay with Kenny starting on the bench. I wasn't entirely surprised. I think if somebody like Griffin or Kizza, or Hogan started on the bench after what we've seen the past few weeks, I would have been more surprised. But Steve, what were your thoughts about, Forbes starting on the bench?
Yeah, I think this has more to do with Phoenix than it has to do with Kenny at that point, right? That Bob sees the speed and offensive overload that Phoenix is likely to do and has done and done for years, and wanted more pace, right? Like, so it's not a knock on Kenny's ability. It's just he's not the fastest player at 35 years old. So Bob's bringing in some younger guys that can run and chase things down that he's not able to do anymore. And I think that's a Phoenix thing, not a knock on Kenny's ability.
Josh, were you surprised at all?
I was a little bit. I just didn't expect it just because we hadn't seen it all season. Like it wasn't like, it's been like off and on or anything like that. But to Steve's point, it does make a lot of sense for this opponent. I suspect we see him starting again against Detroit. Just a different type of game, a different type of situation. But he is so close to getting the all-time minutes for USL.
Yeah.
So maybe we will get that at home now instead of getting it away, which is kind of cool.
He's just behind our buddy Hugh Roberts, which is interesting that, sort of the all-time leaders run through Pittsburgh. Good point. Hopefully we will see it here at home. One thing just about Phoenix's goal that I thought was interesting, pretty much all game, it seemed like guys were slipping all over the place, sometimes in sort of dangerous positions. Like I think it was Robbie at one point slipped into a guy and it clearly was unintentional. But the guy got up hurt a little bit. But it just seemed left and right, people were slipping. Their goal came because Asumanu literally slipped and they sort of broke through. It just makes you think, if we were at Highmark, would that goal have happened? Maybe not. Not to discredit Phoenix, like they're a good team, obviously. One of the
with the goal, I just want to say it was becoming a joke in my house watching this game. She was with us watching it with Liz and I. How do you say his name? Papi Marboy?
Sure.
Yeah. Constantly, the announcer constantly saying his name, full name, not shorting it down, just his full name, the whole match. And yeah, it was just.
Listen, there's something to be said for local guys. I think, it's been years since we've had local guys calling our games, but I don't think it probably would have been as big a deal if they had USL guys calling it from Florida. So good on Phoenix for having guys there that are calling the games.
Pop Mar boy. That's what it was. Pop Mar boy. Pop Mar boy. Pop Mar
Yeah.
boy. Just constantly saying Pop Mar boy.
Yeah. Guys, one thing about Dick that I think is interesting, when movies, TV shows, all things like that, you always have leaders that they'll refer to as like wartime leaders versus peacetime leaders, and how it's a different skill set. And for whatever reason in my mind, I've started thinking of Dick as a wartime keeper because it seems like there's a level of chaos that he thrives on that sort of previous Hounds keepers may not have. So, in previous seasons, a Hounds keeper could expect to see 3, maybe 4 shots on them per game, and it's their job to keep them out. Whereas this incarnation of the Hounds, now it may steady, obviously, as the season progresses, but we're seeing far more shots. We're seeing far more chaos, and Dick seems to thrive under that. And there's times where his distribution isn't great. Like he's sort of either throwing it out of bounds or kicking it out of bounds, which is also, sort of a Hounds thing. But it does seem to me that he thrives a little bit on just that chaos. Steve, have you noticed that at all?
I don't know that I'd say he thrives on the chaos, but my feeling is he wants to be involved in the big plays as a keeper. Like he seems to just like get really pumped when he makes a big save in a way that maybe the last keeper that I felt really did that regularly was Vitiello. And then maybe Austin Pack, who didn't do it often. So
yeah.
Right. But like he just I like watching him. Like he makes a big save and he gets up, right? Like what it reminds me of is some of those big moments when Arturo would make some big defensive plays, right? It's that type of attitude of just like fire in his face and eyes and just like let's go.
Yeah. Josh, how do you feel about having maybe you disagree with the comment of wartime keeper?
No, I definitely understand what you're saying. And he does, I feel pretty confident with him back there.
Yeah.
I know Johnny Waite, he's having an interesting season. I was actually curious. I was trying to look it up before it got to me. I feel like he's not doing that great this season. And also kind of just interesting to see the two juxtapositions just because of, Waite being there. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with our keeper situation.
Yeah. Agreed. I'm not complaining in any way. It's just, like I said, it feels different from previous seasons, which different can be good. So we'll see. Guys, obviously this sort of formation change worked. Our buddy John Morrissey, he did a whole write-up seemingly 15 minutes after the game was over, which, kudos. Every single time I see him, I'm like, do you sleep? And he's like, yeah, like a few hours. I'm like, dude, you're crazy. But it will be so obviously we get a 3-1 win against Phoenix. We come home, we're playing against Detroit this weekend. Will you be upset if we deviate from this sort of 4-2-3-1 formation, considering the success that we had against Phoenix? Or will you look at a change in formation as Lily identifying weaknesses in Detroit and you'll be happy about it? I'm talking like the first 5 minutes of the game. Steve, what are your thoughts on that one?
I don't think 5 minutes is long enough for me to make a determination because at that point I'm just like, okay, Bob, what's going on?
Right.
Like,
lineup is announced. And if you look at the players that are announced, that it differs, or you can be like,
I guess the difference with that is, had you asked me what I thought our formation was going to be, I would have thought we had that regular 5 at the back formation.
Like the 3-4-3 that we've been playing or something.
Yeah. Or however you will. Sometimes 2 at the forward, right? But like definitively 2 wing backs and 3 center backs.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought when I saw the lineup. So to see the formation on the field was kind of surprising. And realizing how much further forward Junior was playing with. But what made it obvious was that Junior and Luke were, for the most part, next to each other, or stacked up and on that left side. And so that really gave it away. So I think that's the difference. And so I'm wondering if part of this is a change in formation because of the opponent, or again, Bob trying to find a way to change the formation to put the guys in the field that he thinks are doing the best right now. And if you've got Junior and Biasi on the field, you're putting one of them on the other side, which pulls them out of position. And to have two wingbacks, then you've got to put Rovi in, which then takes one of those guys out. And so I just wonder if it's that Bob felt these guys were the guys that were performing the best in practice. And knowing Bob, I mean, that's the most important thing for him after looking at who he's playing. It's who's done what in practice this week.
Yeah. Josh, before I come to you, because I want to get your thoughts on this as well, I just got to say, I thought the injection of Rovi in the midfield, and we've done this before, I kind of really liked, especially late in the game. Like, dude has some wheels and he could cause some chaos. And, like, I really kind of like that. Josh, are you going to be disappointed is probably too strong of a word, but if the lineup comes out against Detroit, which, again, Detroit, they've played 5 games, they've won 5 games. If Lily rolls out a lineup different than this team that just won 3-1 on the weekend, are you going to be concerned?
No, because Phoenix has won 2 games and lost now 4 games. So it's a very different team, different situation. I don't think you can play the same way against Detroit this year than with Phoenix this year. Like, it's 2 very different situations. Now, disappointing is the wrong word. So I won't be surprised if the lineup is more defensively minded for Detroit. Even though we're at home, I will be excited though if it's the same lineup. A little bit different there. I'm not like disappointed, but I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I get it. But if I see the same type of lineup as far as like formation, and like, I'm just going to think, oh, we're going for it. We're gonna, really take the pressure onto them. Which we're at home, so I know winning at home is definitely a mantra and a belief that this Lily and everyone else in the organization has, that like you should be going for the win at home. It's very important for the atmosphere and to build the community, the support for the Hounds. So I will be excited if I see a more offensively minded formation, but I won't be surprised if we get something a little bit more conservative, and at least to absorb the pressure at the beginning. Like, let them wear themselves out a little bit at the beginning and have that wall, and then maybe see a formation change. That would also not surprise me.
I think what excited me most probably about this game was we saw offensively what I think we were hoping for a bit more last season, where you sort of saw the offense was running not through one person, but through multiple people. Multiple people generating plays. Like, I think the first goal for Sterling, I can't remember where it started, but it went Mertz to Kizza to Sterling. And then the second goal was Mertz to Etu to Kizza. And then even the Dieni goal was Etu to Griffin, who I think he lost it. It looked like a drop. But regardless, you had multiple people in the box, different people in the box, crashing the box, making stuff happen. And I think if we're going to replace Dikwa, this is going to have to be how it is. You're not going to pluck another 20-goal scorer out of nowhere. So you're going to have everybody contributing. And so it's one game, but that's a good sign, I think.
And I think if we start seeing that type of play more, that's for me, the silver lining of losing Dikwa, that it forces the team to have to do other things rather than relying on the big, strong, excellent goalkeeper that can fight people off and find ways to score goals that not many other people in the league can score. I think as I look at what happened and as I think about Detroit, I think it's got to be, you've got to go out and you've got to find a way to win this game. I think there's nothing worse than a 0-0 draw or a loss to Detroit at this point after what happened at the end of last season. That it's got to be a statement, because otherwise it's like, well, now Detroit's showing that that they're the team that can beat Pittsburgh regularly, right? Like we don't want Detroit to be what we are to Tampa Bay.
Lib on Twitter said, can feel the team gelling a bit, picking up some momentum. Next week with Detroit will be a tough game, but with a lot of holdovers from last year, I hope they come out fired up and pissed off. Don't doubt the Lily. So that kind of echoes your point there, Steve, of some hurt feelings.
I don't know. I feel like that's too much emotion for Lily. Like I don't think Lily's feeling like this. Like I honestly, like, us as fans and the players, even them, I think are going to be more, cutthroat and wanting this than Lily is. I think Lily's just thinking like, well, Detroit's a good team this year, and here's what kind of formation we should probably do for making sure. And then, an hour and 30 minutes later, he'll explain why he did it. But that's just how it's going to be. I
feel like you just quoted with a premonition half of what his postseason wrap up is going to be, regardless of the outcome of the game.
And like that's why we love Bob. I mean, that's why I like Bob, because like he is very tactical and thinks about it like that, and like doesn't let the passion / just go to his head and like, all right, we have to go all out. And I say all that, then he yells at the team for like an hour. So I don't really can't say he's not passionate, because he is passionate, but it's just.
But he's yelling at the team for an hour for what they did or didn't do. It has nothing to do with the opponent.
Yeah. True. So it's an interesting dichotomy there. But I would not be surprised to see a more defensively minded formation to start out with, and I don't think he's thinking, chip on his shoulder, we have to beat Detroit or else it's all out. Especially this year, Detroit's killing it. Like I know they haven't had the same opponents as us, maybe an easier schedule to start out, but they're doing really good. So like I'm not going to be upset if we try to eke out a 0-0 draw when our team's on the rise and their team is already at the top as far as the season goes.
Yeah. We're merging into talking about the Detroit game. Before we get there, is there anything else that you guys noticed in this game against Phoenix that you think is worth discussing at this point?
Next time we score, could we not let them score on us within 2 minutes? Because I want to be able to enjoy that goal. Like that goal happened, I'm just like, yes, we got a goal. Oh, never mind, they scored
Yeah, that's always frustrating. I mean, that is mental. Now, again, in this case, Asamanu slipped. If he doesn't slip, does that get saved? But yeah, anytime that you allow another team to respond that quickly, it is mental. And so that's something that you can guarantee Bob was talking about post game with the guys and trying to get that right.
Yeah.
We said Sample, did good this game. At least I said it. I don't think you both agreed. Suber. Did Suber, like, I don't really have a beat on yay or nay as far as his start goes.
I was not impressed. I mean, I think he, maybe he needs some time to get up to speed in the league or whatever it may be. But there were a few times that he was kind of standing around looking over his shoulder as the ball's flying past him. So it did make me question a few times, sort of seeing him in there. Is that a spot that Rovey could have done better, Blackstock could have done better? But again, I'm willing to cut the guy a break because it was his first start, getting some serious minutes against, the champs from last season. Mm-hmm. So see how it plays out. Steve, do you feel similarly?
I think more of what that is that, when we had the ball, we were going the other direction. So he wasn't involved in a lot of the transition and the offensive efforts. And I don't think the ball, I don't think he was having to do as much defensively, because if you watch the game or if you look at where Phoenix had the ball a lot and who was in those positions, you saw a lot of Mertz, a lot of Sample, and a lot of Griffin shutting down that side before it even got to that right defensive side more often than not. That's not to say that it didn't happen, but I just don't think he had as hard of a job as some of the players in front of him or some of the players on the left side for the Hounds.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I don't know if he had the chance to shine as much as he could have. That's fair. And maybe that's good, right? Like his first start.
Yeah. Anything else on this game?
Guys, we won.
Yeah, we won. That's awesome. Also, shout out to Fez, who was in the Discord chatting us up during the game, and it was like 3:30 a.m. when the game started, and he's just all in. He's like, "I'm still up. I'm ready for this game." I'm like, "How are you?" Like, I'm complaining it's 10:30 p.m. I'm like, "How dare they play a game this late? I want to go to bed." And you're like, "It's 4:00 in the morning. Let's go, boys."
It's quality. I expect nothing less from Fez. Good
Right,
on him.
right. So that was pretty funny to see in the Discord, in the Steel Army Discord.
Yeah. So yeah, Steve, to your point, the first one of the season. I think I'm more excited about 3 goals than I am the win. Like, I'm glad we got the win, but the biggest concern after 5 games and 1 goal is where these goals going to come from. And I think that we've seen, at least from this game, that we can create goals. And the 3 goals that we got did not feel fluky in any way. They all felt earned. They were all good team goals, working the ball into positions and scoring. So if we can do that consistently, then we could be a bit dangerous, which would be great, and just completely turns the tone of what we've been, harping on all season so far. So great. I feel good about it.
Yeah.
Cool. So guys, some other news that dropped this past week, Open Cup news. The Hounds are now in the Open Cup. We basically have entered into the latest round, and we drew Tulsa at home on Tuesday, May 7th. Josh, thoughts on Tulsa coming to Pittsburgh for our first Open Cup match of the 2024 season?
Yeah, I mean it's good that we got Tulsa. It could have been better if we would have gotten who's the lower league team? I can't even remember who it is in our group now. But I guess the only thing that sucks is, yes, we get this game at home, but no matter what, the next game is away in this group. So unless whoever wins that game decides they don't want to play in their, they give up home field advantage, which I don't see happening. So that kind of sucks, but I'm happy to have a home game. It's not against an MLS side, which, as far as where we're at in the, we could actually go pretty far in this since we came in at a later stage. I actually like that we didn't draw an MLS team.
So I've not looked beyond that. We've got Tulsa. So can you explain for me, and hopefully other people that have no idea, why the other team would host if we win?
Why they wouldn't host, or why they do host?
Why they do host.
So it's a bracket, kind of like so each in this stage, we were putting
got it.
We're in groups of 4
because we're further than we normally ever are coming in. So it's not pods. It's
just the way they drew
style.
it. So they drew 4 teams, and the first group was I'm blanking on who it was, but basically the first group and then the second group. And since we're the second, match, we're not able to host the next one. If that makes sense.
The Open Cup is weird, and I love it.
Yeah, every year's different too, which is also kind of like, wait, what's going on? How's this going?
So, Mike, you coming to Pittsburgh on a Tuesday night?
So, I would. There are personal reasons that we could talk about off air as to why I won't be. But I assure you, they are legitimate, and this isn't like my kid's in a musical. Like, there's actually something else going on.
I like how your kids having a musical is not legitimate,
right?
Listen, you could be Peter Pan any year. All right, I'm going to the Open Cup.
Exactly.
Against Tulsa.
Against Tulsa, right? Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to pull up the pairings because I completely blanked on who else is in our group as well. And okay, so we have Tulsa. Oh, it's is it Omaha? Union Omaha versus Sporting Kansas City?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the other group.
So yeah, whoever wins that one will host the next one.
So in theory, we could get Sporting KC, but in KC, but that'd be an MLS squad. So
hey. We took 2 of them out last year.
I know, right? I'm guessing we're going to get KC. no offense to Omaha, but like going up against an MLS team, that's a pretty big ask for Omaha to get that. So
League One, yeah.
They also did something cool this year. They actually named each one of these groups because it's regional, but not really. Like as you can see from what our drawing is, we're the odd man out. Hakala Nolan and is the name of our group. Josh Hakala, I believe, is who it's named after. They're basically media people who have been covering the Open Cup forever. I remember interviewing Josh like back in 2013 when I was on USL Procast.
Wow.
With Ben Cole. So yeah, like he's been around forever, and he's one of the people at thecup.com that does like all the coverage there. So it's kind of cool to see the names of the groups being like they are.
Yeah. No, it's all very cool. And you know, it's up to this point, it's been for the sickos. I think now that the Hounds are in it, it's diehard Hounds fans all the way. I was going to ask, you know, going into this, now that we know who we're playing, considering how we started the season, this was pre-Phoenix. I was going to ask the question of, do the Hounds put almost more of an emphasis on the Cup, just in terms of trying to make something out of this season thus far? But I think after the win at Phoenix, there's a bit of a lift. So we'll see. We still have 1-2 games before our Cup match, so a lot can happen to turn things around. I like our odds against Tulsa, especially at home. So it'll be interesting. It'd be great to see us put together another Cup run like last year. You know, my guys have the framed picture from the Columbus game on their wall with all the signatures on it. Another season like that, you know, that game is going to be something that they will never ever forget. I'll never forget. So Josh has his right here that he's showing off on screen right now. So, yeah, more of that, please, for sure. But, guys, before the Open Cup comes to Highmark, as we've been alluding to, Detroit comes Saturday, 7 p.m. As I mentioned, 5 games, 5 wins. They tend to play a 4-5-1. So it'll be interesting to sort of see if and how Lily tries to counter that. In terms of their offense, they're averaging roughly 2 goals a game and roughly 1 goal against per game. So they're winning by sort of slim margins, but still it's a win. Their leading goal scorer is Rodriguez. He's got 3 goals and 2 assists. He's been involved in almost half of their goals this season. So if we're going to shut somebody down or try to shut somebody down, it's probably going to be Rodriguez. The one interesting thing was that their conversion rate is 21%, which basically means that they're scoring on roughly 1 out of every 5, 1 out of every 4 shots they take on net, which is pretty good. Ours is only 8%. Now, granted, you know, we scored 3 goals in the last game, so that's kind of skewed since we had only 1 goal the rest of the season. But they're accurate and they're potent. So shutting them down will be interesting. And, you know, they're also, you know, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who's a Hounds fan, but they've conceded more fouls and they have 1 more yellow card than us, even though they've played 1 less game than we have. So they're a physical team, and they're gonna draw fouls. They're gonna draw yellows. So this is going to be a bit of a battle. Josh, how are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Like I said, you know, wouldn't be surprised if we see a more defensive lineup, but I guess to counter the narrative a little bit as far as their season so far, they played Indy 11, who had a rough season last season. I don't know how they're really shaping up this season. They played North Carolina and Oakland Roots, and I think, Loudon and Colorado Switchbacks. So like their lineup as far as opponents go so far is not exactly the same as
it's not Louisville, Tampa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like I'm not like as like, you know, just saying that we've been able to hold our own against the Rowdies, and I know Rhode Island isn't doing great, but they still have a great, you know, set of guys on their team. Held our own against them, and like only one that we really got blown out on was the Louisville game. I would say felt pretty bad. Yeah. So I don't know. Like they're definitely going to be a hard team to face, and I'm glad we're facing them now than at the very beginning, first couple games of the season, because we were definitely needing some time to ramp up. So hopefully we can meet that challenge.
Steve, how you feeling?
I mean, yeah, I like I said, I feel like this has to be a game where the team comes out looking for the win. I appreciate what Josh said earlier about Bob, but as a fan, like no, like this is like no, like I don't want a situation where we've gotten 1 point out of 3 games, including a playoff game against this team. I want to come out. I want to crush them. I want to see the team on fire. I want to see more of what we saw offensively on Saturday night at home. Because it's great to see the team go and score 3 goals in Phoenix. But come on, I mean, yeah, it was the middle of the early morning for Fez and late at night for the rest of us, right? Like none of us were as engaged in that game as we would be if we're sitting there in the Paul Child stand and watching those goals go in at Highmark.
Yeah.
And so I want to see that.
We need Fort Highmark to become Fort Highmark again.
Mm-hmm.
Like this season, it has not been the fort that it needs to be. So it would be great to actually, start reclaiming that title with a win against Detroit of all teams. And I also think, even though I said Bob is not going to have that mindset, the players will.
Oh yeah,
we didn't lose we lost some key players. We didn't lose a lot of players, and the ones who are going to be on that pitch are going to be the ones who are really diehard about hey, we need to get this, like after getting crushed or dreams crushed in the postseason last year against this team. They better have that passion, and I think they will.
Yeah, agreed. One sort of side note, we talked a little bit about how late the game was, and Steve, you talking about sort of getting up for it. I was at my son's game on Sunday in Norwin, and my parents were there, and it was funny because my dad turned to me and he was like, "Hey, did the Hounds play last night?" And I said, "Yeah, but it was like 10:30." He's just gotten in the habit of Saturday night turning on either KDKA Plus or ESPN, and the game's on, and he'll sit and watch the game. And so it was fun because this has never happened before. We had like a back and forth conversation where he was like, "What happened to them, man? Like they were so consistent last year. I know they lost some guys, but what's going on?" And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is a sign of things progressing in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Like the fact that here's a guy who had, well, we'll say 2 kids that played for an extended period of time, who, he'll watch Penn State football and golf, but like is engaging and actually trying to watch the Hounds. They just weren't on until later at night, but is looking forward to seeing the game against Detroit. So, I think my thoughts on this game in particular echo your guys' thoughts. I think I won't be surprised if we don't see the same lineup as we saw against Phoenix. But I also would be happy to see the same lineup against Phoenix because we know that it works. But if it doesn't play out that way, then we'll just go, well, that's Bob being Bob. And like, hopefully he knows something that we don't. And is able to neutralize Rodriguez and the rest of the Detroit team. So, Josh, to your point, we can make Fort Highmark again. So, should we do score predictions here, or should we just like win, loss, draw? I know Laura Allen said she wanted to keep the prediction thing going from last season. We have not done that thus far, so I am not starting that now.
Nah, I'm good. I just wanted to bring up this other thing, which I just found out, I think it was yesterday or today. Dick's Sporting Good. They have Hounds gear now in all their stores.
Nice.
It's looking like they have that new complex that it just opened up, like a big one that has a whole display of Hounds gear. But then people were reporting like going to Robinson, going to other places, and they have Hounds gear. You might have to look in the soccer section instead of looking in the local sports section, which kind of sucks. But some of them were in the local sports section, but they were kind of mixed in with like the Penguins gear and that kind of stuff. So a little hit or miss as far as, representation in the store itself, but the gear is in the store, which is great. So
yeah. Is it all current gear?
Yeah, it's all Charlie.
Oh, that's great.
Current stuff.
Because the one in Robinson had some Hound stuff last year, and I talked to Grubba about it, and that was one of the things that tipped me off to the probability that we weren't going to have Adidas this year, but
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was going to be. But in that conversation, he was like, "Oh no, like we want that to be the environment where like you can walk into a sporting goods store and there's Hound stuff, and it's just not as big as we want it to be with Adidas. So we're looking at other options."
Mhm.
So that's great news. Like
Interesting.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah,
I would have thought it would have been bigger with Adidas, but maybe it's just a supply issue.
Yeah.
yeah, not sure, but
I mean,
it is cool to
there-
see.
There was a number of items, but it was all like it was like 3 different options of things that you could get, right? Like, and none of them were like the jerseys or anything like that, right? They were just like like a Hounds t-shirt, a Hounds warm-up jersey kind of thing, and a hat.
Yeah.
There might have been a scarf too. I don't remember.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's good to hear.
Yeah. Well, that's what we think about Detroit. Obviously, let us know what you think. Josh, I had a thought completely unrelated to the Hounds. I don't know if you ever watch is it NBC that covers the Premier League. They have the lowdown. So Rebecca Lowe, they always ask her 5 questions every week. And I think one of the questions was it suit Sean Dyche or tracksuit Sean Dyche?
I mean,
What
the
do you
fact
say
that
about
we
that?
got 2 goals and won a game, I feel like you have to say suit. Like at this point, like don't change anything. Whatever you did that game, keep on doing that because we need the points. So Everton, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised going from the Hounds getting a victory to Everton getting a victory. I'm like, this is amazing. This is not the weekend I expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That and buying some records, that's no better way to do it.
Right?
Gentlemen, anything else going on that we should talk about in this one? Nothing?
Okay. So I got a question for you. So we got Detroit, then we got Miami. We've got that Open Cup game. And then immediately after that Open Cup game on Tuesday, we go to Tulsa on Saturday. So we play Tulsa
I totally missed that.
on the 7th and on the 11th. So I'm going to put the question to you now. If we can only win one of those games, which one are you choosing?
I'm taking the Open Cup game.
Yeah, Open Cup game.
Okay.
Like it obviously we need points in the regular season, but it's still early. Like it won't be as early, during that game, but it's still pretty early. So I'm willing to concede 3 points in the regular season in order to go farther and make a run in the Open Cup.
Yeah, I think even if we did not win the next 2, I would still say I would take the win in the Open Cup over the 3
Interesting.
points.
All right.
Yeah. Because to your point, I think we have a longer time to dig ourselves out. Whereas after the success we had last year in the Open Cup, if you're out, you're out. That's it. It's over. Like the magic ends. So even to beat Tulsa and to go to Sporting KC, like that would be fun. I know that we'd probably end up watching it on TV, but still, you're playing an MLS team and it's fun. It makes news. So yeah.
What would you get to that point? Oh, I think I take the Open Cup.
Yeah. There's 34
but it's closer,
games.
I think, for me than it was. Like it wasn't as definitive for me as it was for you guys.
34 games, plenty of time to make it up. I'm just saying.
Although, we're getting by the time we get to that Tulsa game, we'll be at 9 or 10 when we start looking at the standings.
It'll be the 9th one. And I mean, we're still not able to look at the table, so it doesn't matter. Those points don't count.
It's all Monopoly money at this point. Doesn't matter. Yeah. All right. Well, if nothing else is going on, gentlemen, thank you for joining me this evening, and thank all of you for sort of watching live and joining us. Make sure you go and you subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcasts. I did throw down the gauntlet and say that we have, I think, 100 subscribers over on YouTube. I'd love to see us get to 500, which is a lot more. But if we get to 500, then I'm committed to doing something stupid, which I'll let you guys pick. And we'll do it and we'll film it and it'll be chaos. And maybe we'll try to get the team involved too. Who knows? So go over, even if you listen on a podcast player, go subscribe to Mongols on YouTube, and we'll help us get our numbers up, and we'll go from there. Otherwise, I think that's it. All that we have for this one. Obviously, best of luck to the team against Detroit at home on Saturday. Liz gives a hell yeah from the chat. Thanks, Liz, and thanks everybody. We'll talk to you very, very soon.